Hey y'all, this is Reverence for Impulse, and we are Weena and Tim, sister and brother.
We're both into somatics and movement, and this season we're talking about relationships.
And how the impulses towards connection, protection, and creation shape the way we come together.
Thanks for following your impulse to listen in. Cheng Thom is an amazing writer, activist, transformational justice advocate, etc. But I got to tell you, this woman knows range. This episode was amazing. All three of us went to some really deep places and giggled like schoolgirls as well. So from the lightest and funniest to the deepest, and all those strands and strings that connect one to the other and kind of loop it all around. Sit back for a beautiful conversation with a beautiful person, Cheng Thom.
Our hair is really looking good now after
Yeah, our
that.
hair is really.
There was a moment where, like, when y'all both started moving, where like just the long hair started flopping around, and then like hands went into hair, and just like because I'm watching two people at once, like it has a lot of duet vibes, even unconscious, on a split screen. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thanks, Cheng. How was that to see and be seen by us?
There was a point at which I lost track of the being seen in the practice. Yeah. Because I was like really vibing. I was like, oh, this is great. I could just do this forever. What if this was an hour long?
Yeah.
And so I didn't completely lose awareness of the being seen part, but I was, it didn't feel like maybe like a pressure the way it did at the beginning. And it didn't feel like a huge pressure at the beginning either. And I thought it would be. I think when I was witnessing, I was like really aware that I was like, I started out by like projecting a lot of meaning into the movements. Like it was unintentional, but like kind of still happening, kind of like, oh, this looks like that. Like this movement looks like this. And then I would do a little like loop back into myself. I'm like, oh, does my movement have to have meaning when I do it? Does it have to be like good in a particular way? Oh my God, I'm not a dancer. Like there's just a little bit of that like a running commentary in the background. Um, right. As I'm speaking, I'm realizing there was also a moment in the witnessing, though, that I lost track of that little like chatter, and the way I know I was kind of lost in like the flow of witnessing you, Tim, was when you said time, I was like, like I was like kind of like a shock. I was like, what? Um, so yeah, I guess I'm reflecting on that. I'm just noticing. Um, for me, there was something very calling in about both witnessing and being witnessed, like kind of like an ego consciousness at first of like, oh, is this like, am I being watched? Am I watching? Is this good? Like, what does this mean? And then after a while, losing that, or like moving outside of it and being in the flow.
I love those moments where you forget that you're seeing or being seen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always interesting to feel the charge of that and to notice what happens. But like you said, when you're sort of caught being invested unconsciously, it feels like joining. And I like that.
Yeah, I had a moment in my movement where I was like, typically I have a similar arc to what you're saying, Cheng, where it's just sort of like, okay, facing the camera. Do I need to be facing the camera? Who's this for? Like, what am I doing? Like, and it always kind of starts off as a stretch, especially at 7 a.m. my time. It's sort of like, just like kind of working it out a little bit. But then, like, I think because I know both of you, Weena a lot, you barely, but a little bit, it was like was sort of like, so I thought about the witnesses themselves. Like I thought about y'all, and I was like, I don't care how I'm seen by these people. Like I could feel like a shedding happening because the space felt safe enough or the people felt comfortable enough to me. And then it felt more like, yeah, I felt more like me, the
Mm-hmm.
me, not me that you're talking about. Like it's a little just maybe more authentically doing what my body wants to do. And um, yeah, it's like if I have like one giant polar central wish, it's to be more authentic in all spheres. So it's like it's a really good practice for me along that really central commitment in my life of just like I'm just like every time like what I'm good at is talking about how frustrated I am not being myself. What I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
learn is how to actually be myself. Like I've gotten the awareness that I don't like not being me in different settings, but it's still a practice to actually show up in that way. And but yeah, there's like it's fueled by this anger, this rage. It's just like, I'm not fucking doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Like whatever, you know, in a general broad spectrum, like why am I performing? Why am I shaping? Why am I contorting? And I know there are reasons why, but like anyway, that's my beginning of the podcast, personal unload. Voila.
I love that. Can I ask questions about that? I don't.
Hmm.
This is y'all's podcast, so maybe you're like, we're the ones who ask the questions,
Not
bitch.
at all. It's a
But
conversation.
okay,
So
okay. So okay, my question is like, I often hear people say things like this, Tim, and I feel like a reverence for it when I hear people say like that, like there's like an anger about the not being self, and then the desire to be in self. But I'm like, who is that? Like, when we like there's some conscious contortions, there's some conscious masking. I'm consciously to some extent like not doing my like wiggles and squiggles on the bus, except maybe sometimes I am, I don't know.
really
But
tiny.
yeah, like when you're dropping away the conditioning or the shaping that's like what the dominant culture or the subculture, whatever all the cultures say that you're supposed to be doing. Who is
Hmm.
that? Like, and why is that better?
Why is it better?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I only understand that through like a lens of what I would call liberation or like a freedom. Like I
Mhm.
feel more free. I don't know, I can't say who that is, and I would definitely affirm that who that is shimmery and shifty and
Uh-huh.
like not set in stone, especially the deeper you go. But when I let myself be, when I let myself, when I get out of my way, when I stop holding and constraining, whatever emerges feels more like something free or something, um, yeah, I don't know, more like the water than the creek bed kind of a feeling.
Vital. Vitality is the word that
Yeah.
keeps alive
Mm.
or
But I don't know if it's better. It's better because it feels more free. And like I love that question of better too, because it's like, you know, like if you study Buddhism or you study these things that are really ask a lot of questions about like the nature of things and whether, you know, acceptance and change and just these sort of universal fundamental underlying principles. There really is this question of like what's better than anything else? Like, isn't it all good? And but somehow I do have a preference for like what I call freedom, but it could just be another story that I got fed.
I don't know. I feel there's like I think something I love about this practice that I'm like tapping into around that is like there was like this like moment closer to the end where I was like really vibing. Like I was like, okay, like you
Hmm.
just like go. Like this is great. And I don't know if I would in this moment call that movement, that experience more myself than maybe like the self I'm being right now. Um, but I also feel like lucky to be like to feel particularly free in my life right now, like compared to other moments in time. But it was like good, you know, like I was like, oh, this is so
Mhm.
nice. And um yeah, I guess I'm really curious about this, like the question of like, is there like a mask that we pull away and then there's like an authentic self, or like the Jungians would say there's like the ego and then there's like the transcendent self that is connected to the divine, which is very similar to the Buddhist thing or whatever. But I think they're like, you know, I bring this ball back to. I told myself I wasn't going to talk about gender on this podcast, but I'm going to talk about gender. Like,
Why? No, bring it.
because I'm always like people are always like, let's talk. People are
Oh,
always like talk about being trans, and I'm like, God, like why? And
yeah.
then I talk about being trans, and I'm like, God, I bore myself, but this is whatever. Like it's fine. Um, you know, people are always asking in some way about transsexuality or being transgender. That like they're like, is this like a natural thing? Like, is like I ask myself this: is me being a woman, scare quotes, because I don't know what a woman is any more than I know what being the self is really, but like, is that something that I feel because that's authentic and I like pulled away like a mask or like a conditioning that was placed on top of me, or is it something that got constructed somehow? Or you know, this is very politically incorrect, but people will sometimes say that being trans is a result of child development trauma or something, right? And I just personally am like, I don't think that's true, but it might be, and it wouldn't be so bad if it were. But like um I'm kind of like, who is this thing? Like, why did I decide to live my life in this kind of atypical way? Did I decide at all? And like, but what I do know is that doing it makes me feel nice. Like it's shimmery and cute, and I don't think it hurts anybody. I think it helps me, um, and it did hurt to restrain it or restrict it.
Mhm.
And I guess this is where like, yeah, I'm projecting into your thing about like authenticity, Tim, and like and into the practice. And I don't really know where I'm going
Mhm.
with this, but that's where I'm going.
It makes me think of like coherence. Like when we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, Tim, about I don't remember why we were talking about the sort of murkiness of this time or not knowing quite how to proceed because there's a solution offered and then there are theoretical holes in it, or like there's a path forward, but then that's sort of laced with a kind of supremacist ideology, or there's an, you know, like there's, it feels like it's hard to commit to something like recycling because actually if you go any
Yeah.
deeper you realize like, is it being recycled, and like, is that actually going to come, is this helping? That feeling of like, I don't know makes me think about like, well, what do I know? And I know that place, I know that like feeling of coherence or shimmery or like aliveness, and I can trust that. But when I constantly bring in these questions, more sort of prefrontal lobe kind of questions about like, well, maybe that feel good or coherence is a sort of patterning around protection that isn't like, it just ends up kind of unraveling again, and I have to be like, well, what do I come back to? What is the anchor? And like your question around like, is this the right label, or why
Mhm.
is this label? At a certain point, I'm sort of like, I have to like be okay not being able to answer it and just know the feeling, like let that guide me a little bit. And it makes me think of, making dance. There are times where like, I don't know why I'm choosing these series of moves and I can't really make sense of it, but I just know it's right. And then later I can maybe make some sense of it, but um it makes me think about
What
like,
is
where are the places in our lives where that shimmery coherence is clear, and um yeah.
well, yeah, let's like answer that, or like let's all answer that. Like what is your most reliable, truthful anchoring place or process? Or the podcast listener, she's thinking right now.
I'll let you answer, Kai Cheng. I feel like I just did.
What is the most reliable? Can you say it again, Tim?
That was a
I
heavy
mean,
question.
it's reliable, truthful, um,
Like place or location or
place or
circumstance?
process. I mean, place or process. Like where, if you want to sort of like get back to like some fundamental sense of um
What you know?
location, maybe safety, maybe authenticity, even if it's not safe, but like what is the like what's a reliable place or process that you can go into that's like when I do that, I'm pretty much regain my faith in the unfolding.
That is such an interesting question. No one's ever asked me something quite like that before. And I'm like, oh no. Let me know how this sounds, or don't. I don't know. It's just like a so safety feels really separate from like trust in emergence or the unfolding for me. Like I
Yeah, I
almost like
can,
never,
Mhm.
yeah.
like I almost never feel safe. Don't particularly trust safety, though I enjoy the feeling of safety. I know the feeling of safety and I enjoy it.
Mm,
Um, but to me, safety and unfolding, I'm kind of calling that emergence. Like it's kind of how I'm resonating with that. Tim is like is not the same. They can kind of overlap, and I certainly know as a practitioner, like as a healing practitioner, like the principle almost always with working with others tends to be create safety and then their unfolding can occur. But if
mhm,
I'm super honest, like my own personal experience of unfolding um is not really that connected to safety or safeness. um and I don't actually ever feel like I lose my sense of that. Like, I
mm,
think it's like always there for me. And I'm trying to see if that was always true. I don't think it was. Yeah, like, I was a very like kind of hidden child, like right back to childhood. Time for
mm,
psychoanalysis, but like, like I was very kind of inward, introverted, and like quite frightened. And then in my teens, I was like very stuck. Like there was a lot of stuckness, and then there was a lot of chaos. And oh God, here I am talking about gender again. Maybe something will come out of this. Like, so I had a lot of like, yeah, like there was a lot of feeling of like, I remember a lot of yearning, a lot of frozenness, a lot of rage, like internal frozenness, but external chaos kind of in my adolescence and early 20s. And then I had a near-death experience. This is interesting kind of thing happened where I tried to come out and transition in my teens. And it didn't work out because of basically extreme social violence. Laughing, but it's not funny. So
mm,
extreme social violence happened. My family was extremely unequipped to respond to it. My school and community were cruel, and so I like went back in the closet essentially. Like I kind of said, I'm not a trans girl. I'm a gay guy, and that'll be it. I'll be happy that way. And I kind of forgot that I was trans. Like there was like maybe a 3 year or 4 year period where I was like kind of making the transition from living with my parents to living in a different city on my own. And in that earlier time of young adulthood, I would tell people in like the storytelling phase of making new friends, I'd say, there was this time when I used to think I was trans, but I wasn't. I was actually, just an extremely effeminate guy. And then I had a near death experience. And right after surviving that near death experience, like the morning after, I got up and kind of in this like floaty haze, like drifted over to my literal closet. And in it was like all my boy clothes, and there was one dress in like the corner. And I still don't really know how that dress got there. Like it wasn't something
mm,
I remember consciously like including or wearing or like doing anything. I was like, so I opened it and I like noticed it for the first time. And I was like,
mm,
huh, interesting. And then I put it on and I was like, Oh, and something clicked in my body. And I remember like this moment of putting on the dress and looking in the mirror and being like, oh, there was a coherence that appeared. And there was also this portal opening. There was this moment where kind of I was like, oh, I actually am never going to be connected to the same, to safety in the same way again. And I haven't been as I transitioned in that moment and like basically never looked back in terms of like presenting
Mm.
or identifying as a woman. And yeah, I've never, it's so interesting. I've never thought about this way. This is a totally unrehearsed answer, but I just, in this moment, what feels true is I have never lost my sense of connection to the spark or to the flow since then.
Mm.
I've like always known it and all the danger that has come from being a trans woman in like an extremely hateful, socially violent time, um, hasn't changed that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. So you feel anchored in that all the time. Like it's a clear path.
Yeah, and I mean, I make choices that really like touch me, and right? Like I have a individual coaching, like somatic coaching caseload of like 20 to at any given time, and I facilitate on top of that, and I'm always doing like weirdo queerdo like movementy party medicine-y type things. So it's not like
Mm.
it's all just kind of hanging out there. It is actually getting fed, right? Like I'm making life choices that feed the flow. Um, and if I didn't do that, if I didn't live my life the way I do, if I was like being a 1950s housewife somewhere, maybe it wouldn't be, or maybe it would. I don't know what that's like being a 1950s housewife. It looks good in some of the ads, but I'm just saying for whatever, yeah, there was a choice that happened kind of in that in the moment of transition, and then there was a series of other choices, but the flow has just kept going. I don't think I've ever really lost my sense of that since, and maybe I will, but yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.
Is your sense of that what you would call faith? Is it a faith thing? Your relationship with the emergence?
Hmm.
Do you trust the emergence?
Yeah, I guess I do. I don't trust it to like, I was raised Christian. I have a relationship to the Christian God, and I kind of used to trust the Christian God in a certain way where I'd be like, he's my secure daddy, you know? That's
Mhm.
not how I don't feel that way about the Christian God anymore. And I
Mhm.
don't feel that way about the emergence. I trust the emergence the way like it's like I trust it to be itself. Like I trust it to be there in the way that like nature is there, and nature is not like a sweet secure daddy or mommy. It's like violent and also delightful and amazing and alive and transformative. Like I trust like the totality
Mhm.
of it,
Mhm.
and I think what I trust is me.
Mhm.
Like I trust myself to be a part of the emergence rather than like trying to get away from it. um yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What does this sound like? I'm so curious. Like, what happens when I say these things? I've never said any of these things in this way before.
What happened?
I feel well, inspiring is one thing, but also like there's a security in the way that you're saying that makes me think that that's also possible for me. Like that's also true. And at some level I don't think I'm far from that. I would say a lot of my life choices similarly support and nourish my own emergence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's just the way I'm thinking about it. I guess that's what occurs to me is like maybe it's just like a story shift.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I think of like the struggly or like psychic challenging spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think of it like, um, well, I appreciate your willingness to like kind of step into questions like this because it's like it's kind of for me it's fun or it's interesting because it feels basic. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
essential.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to play with like surface and theory and stuff too, but it's also like for me, maybe that's even part of my practice is having conversations like these help me affirm that there's like a kind of liveliness or humanness that is consistent when you get down to a certain layer with people. Like that kind of there's some basic fundamental sames. And like if I ask myself the same question, do I have faith in the emergence? It's sort of like, or where is my place? Where is my anchor, place, or process? Like I do think about being in non-human places first.
Mhm.
Um, and I agree, like when you go to those places, like it can be so stunningly, like outrageously beautiful in its complexity and its texture and its variation and it's everything. It's everything. There's like stillness, there's movement, there's noise and I mean it's all there and it's not telling a story of its own. Maybe I'm projecting one onto it, but it's like it's not really a storyteller the way humans are.
Mhm.
So for me, that can be such a beautiful reminder that I'm in, that I'm part of the emergence. And then I can feel that. I can feel like a trust in the emergence, the ever changing, but it'll keep coming. It'll keep coming. I believe that. Like I see it. And I can keep showing up. I can keep showing up. And I feel that trust in myself. And then I get around other humans and storytellers, and I'm like, I forget everything. And then I can't say that I share that experience of feeling so consistently connected to that trust. I will just I feel like it's like folding up a paper. I'm like, suddenly there's so many layers and I have to like work to unfold myself again and
An
like be
origami
exposed.
swan. Yeah.
Yeah, that we hang on the tree, Christmas tree
Is
for.
this like a thing with y'all? This
No.
origami swan? Okay. I was like,
Yeah,
do you make these regularly? Now we might have
we
to try.
don't. We don't, but like, yeah, but like I feel like like I would agree. It's beautiful to hear you talking about feeling a consistent or even constant relationship with a trust and its distinction from feeling safe, which that makes sense to me. Um, yeah, it punctuates my day. I feel like but yeah, I can really easily get lost. And I'm zeroing in on what y'all both said about I'm making life choices that sustain me or nourish my relationship with emergence. Like, and it makes me think, okay, what about me and my life choices? So who's the therapist now, Kai Cheng?
God, we're, we're all the therapists. Okay, let's like I just really want to like get in. Okay, this is so fascinating. This is good. Y'all have a good formula with this whole movement and then discussion thing. This is great. It feels different and shimmering too. It feels emergent
Oh,
to me. I'm like,
good.
oh, the movement
Yeah.
opened a different way of talking for me, maybe. Probably you all know this. That's why you made this. But okay, so my question is like, what is it about the humans? Because I think something I just realized listening to you, Tim, was like, oh, part of the reason I don't lose contact is because I experience the numinous. I experience the shimmery, the emergent through humans.
Mhm.
Like, and that's why
Same.
my like
Uh-huh.
coaching sessions and my movement and my art and my storytelling and the listening and all this stuff, I like it like deepens me into the universe. And you're saying the opposite thing. And I'm like, what
Mm.
is that?
I was going
Well,
to
like
say, I find it in bodies. You find it in nature, you find it in relationship,
Mhm.
and I find it in physical bodies. Numinosity. You just said numinous, and I
Luminosity.
was like, yeah, such a good
yeah.
word. And I just looked it up today because,
Oh,
yeah, Jane Clapp just did it.
Jane. Yes,
She just
Jane.
put out her newsletter and she talks about numinosity. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And so I was reading about it and then I looked it up. And do you know this word, Tim?
I think I do. I don't know its origin. Like
Um,
I don't know the root word.
Uh,
numinous.
it's like I see. I also don't really.
Well,
What
you're
I
the word
immediately
person.
what I immediately went to was, well, this is why J.R. Tolkien named one of the like great gods Numenor. Like it
Oh,
yeah, like it, numinosity so I know how Jane means it because I think we mean it in the same way. Numinous, the quality of the numinous is like for Jungians, like um numinousness is like the quality or like the experience of touching the divine,
Yeah.
essentially.
Right.
It's like, oh, and we often refer to that as like the ego opening or surrendering to the self. I think maybe a distinction between like a Jungian way of looking at it or a depth psychology way and maybe some of the more like Eastern spirituality ways is like the ego remains intact, like doesn't dissolve into the self, but like remains intact. And experiencing the numinous, deepening like the relationship to the numinous is like the primary aim of like a depth psychology practice. I
Mhm.
think most would say like different ideas what that is or what that means, but like kind of yeah, opening kind of like the soul quality, or like reconnecting to like the collective spirit is kind of like the idea, while also being in relationship with day-to-day life. So yeah, the numinous is like that feeling when you go into the outrageously beautiful nature and you're like, whoa. Or it's like
Mhm.
when you're like doing it like you're with the human bodies and you're like, ah, like something's
Mhm.
happening, like that kind of opening. Or when I'm with like people telling a story or they're saying their thing and I feel my brain expanding, that's the numinous.
Mm.
Mhm.
Do you, because relationships and being with people, and I'm paraphrasing, but that was what I took from what you said, is a space of connecting to that shimmering kind of aliveness or both a fundamental owning of self and complete release of self. Do you feel that you could love anyone?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Because
no
I do too. And
hesitation.
I feel like there's
Yeah.
something, I feel like I'm being too generous when I do feel that. And I remember saying that to Tim a long time ago. A long time ago, we were talking about relationships or something. Do you remember that? I remember saying, like, honestly, like, I feel like I could just love anyone and being a little bit like, is that bad? Because shouldn't I have standards? Like, it's not,
Oh,
but yeah, tell me about that.
oh. Well, I don't know if I'm like the most qualified to talk about should we have standards because I have dated so many people who were horrible for me.
Oh, no.
And
Okay.
I mean, to any boyfriends, ex-boyfriends out there listening, I don't know that I was the best for y'all. Like, I too might have been a person that you should have had standards against or something. I don't know. I mean, I think if we talk about God or divinity in like the broad sense, not like kind of attaching it to a religion. Something like fairly universal among a lot of spiritualities is like God loves everyone. And certainly one of the things I love about the Christian God or about Jesus is that like he loves everyone. It's a specific doctrine about Jesus loving everybody, even if they are sinners. There's like a whole weird thing about having to repent and stuff. I don't really like go for that, but the concept of grace is the divine love that we all receive, whether or not we deserve it. Um, and so that's amazing. I think that's like this is like the quality of like a certain type of divinity moving through the human is like our ability to love anyone. I think we run into problems when like that divine quality we and try to like interpose, try to like do that divine quality in day-to-day life in a way that's not mediated by the ego. Like actually the ego's good function is it's like I need to survive and not spend all my money trying to make this other human person be better, but then they leave me and don't ever call me like not that that's
Yeah.
a true story or anything, but like
Yeah. Hypothetically.
hypothetically we should pour ourselves into another without reciprocity, but it's like I think kind of like that's the confusion is that we are actually incarnate. The flesh, the mortal flesh requires like a mortal like way of managing life. Like you wouldn't say to a child just go and love everybody and anybody can spit on you. Like you just say make them stop doing that. Don't be friends with people who are not nice to you, etc. Like that kind of um day-to-dayness, like mortal quality of managing the flesh and like day-to-day relations requires us to not actually practice the huge divinity. But we need a relationship. This is just my theory, and you know,
Mhm.
it's not mine. It's kind of I stolen it from all these other places. But I think I need to touch that. I need to always be feeling that quality, the capacity to love everyone, because that makes the way I do my ordinariness different. But I don't think it is. I don't want to surrender the idea of having standards. Like I'm trying to actually create more standards in my dating life, but I don't ever want to lose the ability to love anyone. I just think that we can love anyone or love everyone while also ending relationship with them or being angry at them or loving ourselves, right? Yeah, that's
What's like if you're in LA, how long have you been in LA right now?
3 days.
Have you been like out in public or have you just been nested?
I've been out in public a little bit, but mostly nested.
So is there like this is just the question that may or may not land. Is there a time in these 3 days when you've been out in interaction with the bigger world where you've had to practice or you felt the practice of reconnecting to an all-loving essence, even in the face of like, I don't know, the banality, frustration of any and daily interaction. I guess I'm kind of like curious about like what that looks like when you're in a normal flow of a day in a shared space with other humans. Like,
Oh, yeah. Probably my life in Toronto is like a better example of that because I'm like
yeah,
out and about a lot, like interacting with
yeah.
something. But I mean, you know, the place that I'm like, is this divinity? Is like the airport and like getting through traffic, you know, like I'm like, why? Or like the humans are like a throng and they have all their, you know, fluids are leaking out of us and also like mean words are leaking out of us. Like all the leakage is happening. Um but I guess I kind of like I don't, even if something is unpleasant like that and like kind of banal and like gross, I don't experience that as not divine, I guess, or like not infused with the divine. And I mean, listen, actually, like, this is like maybe this is my bias. Is like I could be in nature and be like, this is not like I think I could more easily access the quality of recoiling into
Mm,
myself. Because like I'm allergic to bug bites and like I've been on a lot of hikes, so I'm just like, this is miserable. There's nothing good about this. Like, get me into the air
mhm.
conditioning ASAP. You know, I think
Yeah,
this is more maybe what you're going for. But like with humans, I don't really have that. Like I could be
yeah.
horrified or enraged or irritated by humans, but I guess it's even just like um I don't know, like I just find them endlessly fascinating. Sometimes I have this one boyfriend where we like to kind of go on a lot of road trips and every road trip we do a stop in like kind of some side of the highway grocery store to pick up groceries, right? And this particular boyfriend's always like, ugh, well, it's the suburbs and like people, and it's just this is deadness. All the cashiers hate their lives, and all the people with their horrible babies hate their lives.
Yes,
You
yes,
know?
yes.
No.
I'm just like, you know, I see you're lighting up, but like, you know, I
Yeah, I'm lighting
personally like,
up.
I'm wandering through the like shelves, and I'm just like, oh, that woman is sad. She doesn't want to be married to that man she's with, or like that cashier is, I think, doing some weed, like you know, has like a weed drink hidden under the cash or something, and someone's reading a romance novel, and somebody's trying to win the lottery, and you can see me lighting up in a different way, right? Like I am
Yeah.
enraptured by that banalness. Like I'm like, oh, inside each of you is this like deep longing, and like if only I could touch it, then I would be complete. You know, and
Hallelujah.
exactly like give me any suburban grocery store. But you
Yeah.
know, the woods is like, yeah, I don't know. It really depends.
That's
Yeah, for me
funny.
it's proximity. It's like I will walk. It depends on probably my physical state actually, but like walking through that grocery store and proximity is I would say like is the is the what's the word, description of my love. Like, I'm gonna love that cashier, but not when I don't need them like coming and bringing the groceries into my car. Like there's a spaciousness that I need, or distance or perspective, for all that love to flow. And when it gets really tight and close, no more talking. Like no more human, just bodies. Then I can find it again. Do you know what I mean? But there's like a space of relationship, and probably maybe all of us have that. Like, how far away do you need to be in order to feel love? I mean, I'm thinking of nervous system physiological states and proximity and like blah, blah, blah. But apart from that, just like where do we feel like we can take up all the space of our authentic selves, inhabit ourselves fully, love as much as we want, feel love as much as we want? How does that look in relationship to space? Because I feel like, Tim, if you're in the woods looking down at a small town, there's a lot of love there. No?
Yeah. Well, there's also like, it makes me think of like polyamory as a romantic endeavor also, like, which, because I remember this time, and like when you talk about, like, to me, it's almost like what I hear you describing is there's this safe distance over here where things like maybe for you, Kai Cheng, that's like just the observational difference in the grocery store. For you, Weena, it's an actual literal distance away. And then there's like a interfering zone in the middle where it's like, this is a lot of you, a lot of this, a lot of stuff is happening. And then there's like the wordless body touching body zone where it's like good again, or like where freedom or the recoil has maybe subsided. So it's like, I think about this moment at a party that I had I was dating this guy named Willie, whose spirit I like feel a little bit in you, Kai Cheng. It's like each time I've met you, I've thought of Willie, and it's been this kind of like sweet, like, but we were open, and this party was a gathering of men, and it was meant to be like a chance for us to connect in circle, but also have touch. Like it was sort of like meant to be a little bit of a conscious physicality was meant to be there too. It ended up like turning a little bit more sexual than I thought it would as a group, as a whole scene. But I remember that, but Willie had invited this guy who he would sometimes meet up with, hook up with, who he knew from his gym. And so like this person was in the space, and I had like a pretty typical monogamous reaction to it. It was just sort of like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, and so like everything feels threatened. More of like a nervous system response type. Like it wasn't any real conscious threat or declaration of this or that. So I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I see them making out, and then I sort of retreat to my room. And then like Willie comes and finds me there, and I'm having my trauma response. And then, like at some point, he's like, "Come with me," like, and he took me out and like formally introduced me to this guy. And then like we were standing, the three of us, very close. And then like I felt all of my recoil resistance was just like puffed up in me like this, like, and like as we were sort of standing there, like the guy seemed very sweet, and he leaned in to kiss me, and like I was like like like, and then I like all of that just like dissipated, and I kissed him, and then he kissed Willie, and then I kissed Willie, and then like it was just sort of like we moved into that like space, like we moved out of he's safe when he's Willie's friend at the gym, but now he's in my house and he's kissing my boyfriend, and then into that space of like now we're all kissing each other. And it was like, and like the freedom that I felt from my recoil, from my like fear response it was so palpable. It was like exhilarating. I felt like I was like, wow, like it just like so much shedding happened.
Numinosity.
Yeah, I guess so. yeah, I just sort of felt like we're just people loving people. Like
Mm,
it felt way more close to the divine than, yeah. I haven't thought about that for a while,
mm.
but yeah. Anyone else have a story from a sex party they want to share?
Uh, I don't know if
So
anything
many.
anything could match that. No, I
Yeah.
feel like maybe you have the winner of the sex party stories.
Talk about the only time I
That's
felt
good.
that, Tim, with different partners was all like overseas in an airplane. Like that's how far away I have to be for that to be okay.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, I can see how that works for people flying over the Atlantic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, romantic spaces are like um they really put a lot of the like the deeper thoughts and impulses to the test, I think for me. Like it's like it can be really like a very different terrain. And I think a lot of that is cultural. Like I think a lot of it is like kind of the model of the one, you know, young innocence, dating, like falling in love at first sight. Like there's that story like of how two people meet and typically a man and a woman. I mean it's enduring, it's a human thing. Coupling up is like a long-term broad spectrum human thing, but like I think a lot of the fraughtness kind of comes from that and also from our reenactment of like families of origin type stuff. It's like a crazy zone, I think, romantic love around impulse and staying connected. What do y'all think?
Mm. She's thinking.
Good thinking.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll just like do a foray. Like, like when you ask this question, I find myself like kind of catapulted into this like kind of memory space. Like, and I'm like, oh, this is really psychoanalysis now. Like, that like how like kind of in campy TV or like 80s children's TV, if they're gonna do like a flashback, there's kind of like a very slow fade out and then this like music, like it's like
Hmm.
that's what I had. I was like kind of going
Yeah.
into space and like yeah, I mean, I think that one's hard for me. Like romance, and I was hearing kind of like the challenge kind of inherent in the story that you were speaking to, Tim, where it's like there's this like something gets triggered and then maybe like you contact the divine and it opens. And yeah, I mean the fraughtness of the romantic space just really feels alive for me when I kind of when I follow this line of questioning, like because I it's so easy for me to fall in love. Like I was an erotic masseuse for like a fair period of time. It's like my
Mhm.
like main income for a little while, and I was actually, yeah, what's funny is I had a lot of really good mentorship in that space, like because it's easy to kind of there's just a lot of risks in that space, partly because the industry is so criminalized, right? Like, it's like if it wasn't, then there would be more safety, but it is, unfortunately. But all this is to say, I kind of figured out that something I needed to do to like kind of feel good about that work, and I did feel really great about it. I still feel really great about it in retrospect overall. Was like to open, like I would call it inside myself, to open the eyes of love, and like to see in every
Mhm.
person that I worked with like something very lovable, and then that became very easy. uh and all this is to say, I've just dated a lot of guys who, there's like some flags, and not to judge them necessarily, even though maybe I am, but like there were the flags where like this relationship might not be good for me. Not that that's a bad person, but I just, there's like funny kind of saying, I don't remember who it is, maybe it's Douglas Adams, or he's like, You know, I love deadlines. I like the sound, the whooshing sound they make when you whoosh when you whiz by, and that's how I feel about red flags in relationships. I
Mhm.
love the sound that they make as I rush past them, headlong into
That
love.
crisp rippling of the flag in the wind.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you know, like kind of like a broody bad boy who's really into things at first, but then you know he's gonna pull away and he kind of just wants a mommy, but then he also wants to resist you. Oh, that's like crack to me. So
Mhm.
like, just give me that man.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is like, I don't know, like this is where I think the divine feels really dangerous for me. Like, I'm so addicted to that quality of like I could love anyone. I could love anyone, anywhere, at any time. And this particular kind of archetypal man is so dangerous and like opens up this like pain in me, but clearly also I love it. Like clearly also I'm
Mhm.
reenacting something. And that's where like for me there's a very blurry line of like is this like just like a trauma thing? Like I'm just like enacting this pattern that feels so good, but actually it's bad, and then it, you know, feels bad overall. Or is there something there? Like, is there something truly numinous inside, like what on the outside is a toxic relationship? Yeah, like I mean, I've certainly learned a lot about how to keep my relationship safer and how to end a relationship and boundaries and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm
Mhm.
saying is like that there's a part of me that knows that's there. And whenever a client comes to me or like a friend comes to me and they're like, they have that look and they're like, they're like, you know, I'm in a bad relationship. Like, something I
Mhm. It is a
know,
look. I know the look.
right? Like, there's a
Yeah.
haunted, scary quality. I'm like, is that what I look like? You know? But you know, one thing I know to say is like, you know, I want you to be safe, and if you want to leave this relationship, I'll help you. But also,
Mhm.
let's acknowledge how good you feel at certain moments in it, because if we pretend that's not there, you're not going to feel understood by me. And boy or girl or person or whatever, like, I
Mhm.
understand. Like,
Mhm.
it feels so good, and we don't really know for a while, like in our bodies, that it's time to leave.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What is it that, what is it that allows you to leave that good feeling or to know that like you're losing that intoxicating numinosity? Like, is it a sense of like I've had enough or like that's it? Is it like a limit? How do you know? Yeah, I'm not going in that direction anymore.
Well, this is actually like I have actually learned to respect some red flags, and doing social work for like I was a social worker for about 8 years, and just being kind of really immersed in communities where like there's a lot of free love, and also there's kind of a lot of intensity. Like for me, I guess I did learn like actually if there's physical violence, it's time to go. Like
Mm.
if there is certain kinds of psychological violence or emotional violence, and it's time to go. And I don't quite know exactly like how what in there or what got me there, like the ability to be like, that's a hard line, I'm leaving.
Mhm.
But it's like a survival thing for sure. And it took, I know for me, there was something about witnessing so many other people's journeys into like dangerous relationships where I was like, oh, like I'm so concerned for them. Like I really want that person to be safe. That helps me to
Mhm.
be like, I also probably should want myself to be safe in that way.
Mhm.
And like that helped me to like um have some standards, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, there is this thing that I still am working. It feels very floaty and like kind of not quite materialized. And it's kind of cheesy maybe, but I just know that also like in many of the relationships or much of the magic is coming from me, and like not from like not from the other person. Like they are magic or they're making their own magic for them, but it's coming from me. Like even if I'm seeing it through them or I'm reflecting through them or like whatever,
Mhm.
like um yeah, you know, I've once I wrote a short story. I was trying to leave this boyfriend. I was 22 years old or 23 years old. was like a classic kind of bad relationship. He was about 10 or 11 years older than me. I thought I was so mature. I was not. Like, dear reader, I was not so mature. And he was quite dangerous. And I remember like being like, oh, I have to leave this guy and like trying, and I'd be like, hey bud, I'm breaking up with you, and he'd be like, I don't think so. And I'd be like, okay. And I was writing this short story about a girl who's trying to leave a guy, and and I've never published this short story. It's not that good actually, but the ending, the last lines are something along or something like she's leaving him and the sun is shining and the birds are singing literally, and it's like a cold winter day in Montreal. I lived in Montreal at the time. And the last lines are um I'm leaving love so I can return to love. And I'm not worried if I get trapped again. I know at some point I always find the the road to leave. And I was like, oh right. This is something I also had to remember. Like that writing that line stayed inside me. And when I was working with people as a therapist later on who were trapped in intimate partner violence, just to name a thing, it's intimate partner violence or domestic violence, right? Like when
Yeah.
people are trapped, um, they're also in love a lot of the time. And we could do a lot of kind of theorizing about is that love or is that not love? Is it a trauma response? But really, what to me is respect for a client or a person in that situation is being like, no, like this is a complex situation, and like I'm here to help, but not to direct your life. And often these clients would like try to leave and then they'd go back and try to leave and then go back. And anybody who's worked in IPV knows this pattern. Anyone who's been in IPV knows this pattern probably, right? Um, and often the client would like skip a session and then come to me and be like, "Hey, oh, I'm so ashamed. Like we made this plan that I was going to leave and then I didn't because I just love that person so much." And I would say, don't worry about it. What's important is that you follow the impulse to leave, and if you need to leave again, you'll find that again.
Mhm.
And that, by and large, turned out to be true.
Mm.
Um, and I feel emotional talking about it, so there's something here for me still about like
There's a
trust. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like I'm really tuned into this idea of like the repetitive nature of it.
Mhm.
Um and I I'm gauging inside if I really truly believe this or not, what I'm about to say, but it's like I really do think that people will do things until they're done doing them. And that might be staying or leaving, like there's a repetition that just I think is inherent in especially the deep, like emotional, psychic, psychological ways we've been shaped around relationship and around parenting, parent-kid relationships, especially. But like it just takes so much repeating. And many of us, some of us are just going to repeat, die. And then, whatever happens next happens next. But like, it's not that this lifetime is meant to be your arc of resounding freedom from all
Patterns.
painful patterns. But it's like, but there is like in the space of my life, in the space of most people's lives I've seen, and especially around romantic relationship, like I've seen people be stuck in a cycle until they're not. And so I sort of have respect for that timing that's not mine or that's not theirs in some ways. I guess that's a little bit of what I'm pulling from what you're saying. And also the complexity of these relationships that are doing harm, but that are also feeding.
I feel like you're
Yeah.
talking about addiction, essentially. Like, isn't that true for addiction as well? It's like when we have some sort of addictive pattern, whether it's repetition towards something that is not nurturing or good for us, it's like it's only going to change when we make a decision to make that different or like to risk the discomfort
I think
of
I
not
mean,
having.
there's decision making to be done, but I think it's not going to change until you're done. And
Yeah.
that probably looks more like a shattering or a fracturing than it does like a decision. Like,
I'm thinking of a
I,
dear friend in my life right now who's in that pattern you're describing, Kai Cheng, of like,
Mhm.
I can feel her love for this super toxic person is so
Mhm.
tangible. I get it.
Mhm.
But I'm also thinking about what you said about it's you bringing all of that magic, because she's infusing him with all of this
Yeah.
love. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but that's not there. It's so easy for me to not see. And this sort of raises, I guess, a question for you around working with people and how it changes your perspective. Like, if I understand, for example, that person as deeply wounded, acting out his very painful parts, I can
Mhm.
feel love for him. That's not hard. I
Yeah.
hate his choices. I really hate what he's doing. And I also feel compassion and love for the wounded part. And sometimes I get worried that, I guess it's kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, that standards, like when am I holding, or and how, specifically with clients as well, like accountability, or like this sort of love and limits kind of parenting style
Mhm.
around someone who's just, enacting from wound, because I feel that, like, and you know my rebuttal in my head is like, you're a grown ass adult, like make different choices, like there's a that's there too. And
Mhm.
it's some in between place I find is slippery, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I'm in this same question all the time. Like a lot of my work is kind of around restorative justice or transformative justice. And a central question kind of in that field is very much overlapping with the field of domestic violence or partner violence intervention, right? Like is to what extent do we want to really lean into humanizing and like love and the transformative power of unconditional positive regard? And when does that actually just become enabling bad behavior?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
uh, I don't know either. Okay, so there's like a thing in there's a writer, Marie Louise von Franz. She's like one of the like kind of really prominent Jungian writers from the 20th century, and she has this thing about evil. I really love this book, Shadow, the Shadow. The shadow and evil in fairy tales. So she kind of it's not so much about fairy tales as it is about using fairy tales to help us understand evil, and she talks about how usually like there's like overall a good principle is like compassion supports transformation. um but it's also really important not to be naive to the nature of evil. And I think, this is something people kept on telling me, like, as I was starting to become big in the transformative justice space, like publishing and writing and practicing, and people were like, but what about? And I would be like, there's always this other answer about like love, and you can always turn something around, and blah, blah, blah. And I realized at some point that people are like being like, but what about like evil? Like, and like, this is like, I hate the choices thing. And I'm still honestly reserving my judgment on whether or not like a person can be evil. I mostly am like mostly everybody can be loved. But like there's a certain behavior, a certain enactment of harm that I think we need to just be really clear is not acceptable, is bad. And there can be all the compassion in the world about the reasons, but the behavior itself is bad. And we like need to contain it, or like we need to restrain it. And I think when we're talking about a grown man who is doing a harmful thing to a partner, or a grown human who's doing a harmful thing to a partner or to a child or whatever, I think like a very clear response is like to them is like that is bad. And I think working with people who are on the other end, who are experiencing the abuse or the violence, I think something that's become really important for me, even as I validate like they're an adult and they're making choices, and like they are feeling some like deep love, some deep goodness inside their relationship that I might not understand, or maybe I do understand, right? Also, that moment when the person turns on you and does something or says something or is exploiting in a particular way, that is wrong and that should never happen. And you never deserve that because no one deserves like that line feels
Hmm.
very clear in me.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. I guess, and then you can get into the nuance of harm, like psychological, verbal, it can start to get nuanced, I guess, in terms of, and also that person's level of tolerance for it. Like some people can't hear one little criticism, it's considered harm and
Harm.
abuse, right?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
And then there are other people that can hear so much and it doesn't affect them. And
Mm.
there's like a lack of, it just rolls away. So
Yeah.
yeah, different bodies and different levels of tolerance. And
Is your work in transformative justice, Kai Cheng, like, is it, does it like connect to this idea of, I mean, I guess I heard you illustrate it just now, but like, is it motivated by love? Is that the main force that's present there?
Yeah. I
I
think
want to
so.
bring up your chart and show him.
Oh, yeah, I'm a Pisces. Aquarius rising. But yeah, yeah, motivated by love and
Hmm.
trauma. Love it. This is a I see this is a theme in this conversation, love and trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Do y'all
they're
have
in a
any
duet. Go ahead.
do y'all have experience in that space? Or like what do you think about that? Like transformative justice and this idea that the best way to respond to harm is to transform the conditions that enable harm as opposed to like punishment or something. What comes up for y'all when you think about that?
It's deeply resonant. I mean, I think I've experienced it just through you and different webinars or workshops. Um, but that always has felt true. And it feels a little like nature versus nurture kind of
Mhm,
conversation a little bit.
mhm, mhm.
Um, it doesn't feel, I don't know how anyone would not think that, I guess is sort of how I feel. I mean, and you're speaking specifically in regards to like punishment as a reaction to harm versus caring and loving the person who created the harm so that the
Yeah.
conditions of harm making shift. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my quick answer is like, um, my recent cash money job is working for a valet parking company. So we
Mhm,
like I sign up for a gig, we show up at a mansion or an art museum or something like that. We park all these cars and then we have downtime and then we return all the cars. And I end up chatting with a lot of the guys who are on the crew, and it's like 98% men. And it'll be
Broy.
stuff like about where did you park? Where do you park your car? Oh, I parked here because the people are breaking in and like, and then conversations like that so quickly turn into like they're not I wouldn't say all these guys are lacking compassion towards the people who are breaking in, but they're like there's like a category of person who does bad things, the criminals, the breaker inners. And it's like, why would somebody break into a car? Can we ask that question? Like,
yeah.
what are they lacking?
What motivates
That's,
this?
and it's like, so yeah, for me, like that's immediately where logically, that's where it goes for
Right.
me. It's not even my heart.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, it's like, why, and then my heart is there too. I feel bad for somebody who's like living a life of risk and risk of incarceration and all this just to be able to have enough, whatever enough means for them, food, money, etc. But it's like, yeah, it logically it doesn't make any sense. The conditions, like, why is this happening? And I feel like, I mean, we're close to like a scheduled time of the podcast length, but we can keep chatting. But like, I think the main condition that we're existing in is resource, and the main like transmutable resource is money. And I think that like this like striation towards the have and have nots, that's just like if you map it like anything from like the 1950s and Western economies on, it's like it goes and it's like it's gonna get hot around that stuff, I think. And that's a basic condition that we're not providing for, like a fair distribution of some kind of resources. It's like, so it feels fundamental to just the way the world is set up. It doesn't even feel like a question of like whether my car got broken into. It's like, Yeah. What are you gonna do when it all if it gets hot, Kai Cheng?
Like in the apocalypse?
Yeah,
In the collapse of contemporary society?
yeah,
I'm deciding that that's not a foregone conclusion.
yeah. I'm saying it
Ah,
playfully. But yeah,
Okay.
Weena's like optimistic. She actually thinks Trump is gonna do some good things.
No,
do you, Weena?
well, no, I'm
Wow.
not. No, I don't know. I know he's going to do a lot of terrible things, but he's making fun of me because of this
Oh, okay.
conversation
Oh, I
yesterday.
see. Okay.
You were like, please tell me what is the good stuff.
Do you think there will be any good stuff? Because I like, I'm so afraid of what's about to happen. I don't
Um,
live in the US, but everyone is affected by
I think
it.
there's the potential for some good things, but I think there's probably so much incredible harm and damage and fear that those things will be obliterated in comparison. They won't matter.
But you still don't think that the collapse of society
I'm just
is
not going to jump on and decide that's our future.
okay. Gosh,
That's all.
I like that. Um, um, I would be okay with like my ideal is actually there's like a slow dissolution of the society that we have now, and then people are kind and we really make a lot of community gardens and
Hmm.
like we like kind of that like the collapse might be very slow and like allow for like a growth of something at the same time. I don't think it's all lollipops and rainbows like that necessarily, but that would be my ideal, and maybe some anything closer to that would be great for me. But given that it looks like maybe we could have like a sharper kind of short collapse. I just don't know. My joke to my spouse about this is always like, well, as soon as as soon as the water wars start, I'm finding the biggest warlord and becoming his concubine. Make myself indispensable.
Yeah, good. Good plan.
Even warlords require love. I don't know.
Well, you'll have to train me because I'll need those skills.
We can talk. But I don't really know. I think like um as good a person as possible under dire circumstances.
Hmm.
We were talking about the Strozzi Institute a little while ago, like before we got on we did the recording, and I think a lot about so the Strozzi Institute for the podcast listeners is like a place where a certain lineage of somatic practice is taught, and one of the major kind of questions or inquiries in that lineage is like um, who and how do we want to be under pressure, and there's quite a lot of shaping or training toward remaining in a particular kind of embodiment of values or embodiment of commitment under pressure.
Hmm.
The collapse of contemporary society and like environmental and geopolitical disaster is like quite a big pressure. But sometimes pressure also like has the effect of like pushing us deeper, like into our desired self or into the numinous
Hmm.
than not, right? So I don't know, but my hope is like yeah, to be as good as possible in a bad circumstance.
Mm.
Yeah.
You?
So last night we had our PTA for my kids' school. This person, Ferris, came who was worked in I know, one of the hospitals that is obliterated in Gaza. He's from Gaza, grew up there, got his degree in nursing, and then the war started. And so he got out, I guess. I can't remember exactly when. maybe earlier this year and is now in Ireland. But he did a whole story share about that. And it's like what you're describing in a way is like someone who held was under like every kind of imaginable pressure possible and maintained this desire to aid and care for these people. And it feels to me like that. I think most of us would do that. Most of us would move towards that sort of essential drive to care for. I think it's innate in our aliveness to care for one another. And maybe that's, I feel very much like the rainbow lollipop version of like all people are good essentially and will make good choices. But I know that's probably not, that's where I get, you know, called naive, I guess.
Yeah, I just feel like my approach is just the I think everything's like my interpretation of these changes as they are currently occurring and seem to be accelerating is that it definitely has this flavor of being acute and polarizing. But I feel like fundamentally it's like a loosening, like that polarization and sharpness at the top and at the edges is really about like this big loosening that's happening in the big spaces of our hearts, maybe even. Like it doesn't make sense for people to not be cared for. Like what you were saying, Weena, it really is like something about this is going so clearly against an innate truth that's known that I think that that's the rumbling and the loosening that's happening. And so I feel like I just want to be there. I want to let myself loose as the loosening happens. Like I want to be a part of that. Like I don't want to, yeah, like do you know Bio Akomolafe Cheng? Have you heard him?
Oh, very much.
Like,
Yeah.
he's like a very articulate um theorist and describer of these places of structurelessness and lostness and
Fugitivity, that's
wetness and fugitivity. Yeah, that's his key word. I feel like I want to like I would want to become a loose fugitive during these times.
A
Yeah.
loose fugitive. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a character in one of my favorite books. It's called um it's like a 1970s like queer fairy tale kind of. It's called The Faggots and Their Friends.
There's a
Which
performance of that coming. I just saw that advertised yesterday. It's so funny.
Oh, you
These
should see it.
synchronicities.
It's
Okay.
really good.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of like it describes the collapse of society, but it doesn't say which,
Mhm.
but we're thinking America. And like how like there's kind of like it describes like queer life, and like queers is kind of like on the edges of society and like as fugitives essentially. And there's one of the main characters is named Loose Tomato. And that's what I thought of when you said you would like to be a loose fugitive, Tim. This is like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, like
It
queer
rolled under
fugitivity and
the
a loose tomato skin.
refrigerator when you were
Yeah.
Just let myself get thinner and thinner skin and liquefy under the
I know.
fridge.
rot and then germinate some new bacteria. Yes.
That's kind of what happens in the anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't ruin it for us.
Oh,
There's a lot in there. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I
Well, do
know
y'all want
we.
to?
I think we
I
have to
didn't
wrap
mean to
only
cut you
because I
off.
have to
Yeah.
teach, but
Yeah.
I've got to go too.
Yeah.
even though I don't want to, but
This is so nice.
so nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. I'd love to talk again or share space at some point, Kai Cheng, and really appreciate you like spending your morning with us and yeah, and
Oh,
wandering
yeah.
like heart-led wandering. It's really beautiful.
Thank you all
Yes.
for inviting me. I didn't fully know what it was gonna. You described it to me, but I didn't know what it was gonna feel like. I was like, oh, this is
Mhm.
really nice. I love it. Please let me know if either of you or both are in Toronto. Um, I also would to share space again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for being so generous too with your wondering in mind and wisdom and heart and agreeing to come, not knowing what this was, and like step into doing authentic movement and
We're gonna have to
asking
do more. It's
questions.
so fun.
So fun. Thank you so, so much, Cheng. And I guess we'll reach out soon and be in touch. I hope that thank you for
May-
also the earliness. My goodness.
Mhm.
I hope you get a
And
nap.
thanks to me also for
Oh,
getting up this
right.
early. Yeah.
Okay. You got Tim.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks to y'all and for the earliness for sure.
Yeah.
It's an early time.
May we see the sun today wherever we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until next time. She's amazing. Oh my God. What a
Clear
delight
my-
to spend time with somebody like who's so willing, just without ego and
Frank, clear my schedule for the rest of the day. I'm just going to sit here and talk with Cheng. Frank's
Frank.
my assistant.
Uh-huh.
No, she's like she really went there with us, like from a unknown of the movement practice at the beginning to like the wanderings of our hearts, like really just like following conversation around person, around essence, around society, romantic love.
And so willing to share.
Yeah.
So honestly, like I think
Yeah.
she's willing to share her stories and stands in her own kind of authenticity around that wondering, asking questions and leading with a kind of curiosity that feels so, like you said, heart.
Let's all be like this, y'all. Let's all be like this.
I know.
That's my wish.
That's my
Yeah,
wish
thanks
too.
to Cheng, and check out the show notes for information about what she's up to, what she's written, and where you can learn more about her.
She is brilliant.